This video is going to show you, it's going to give you a template on how to make a great decision. And I learned this from Tony Robbins, one of his programs. He talks about this. It's on his program Time of Your Life, which talks about time management. What he talks about is that the power of your life often comes down to the power of you being able to make a decision. So this template, it's called OOCEMR. And I have modified it some, so he talks about it. I got the idea of OOCEMR from him, but this template has been modified some. So original credit goes to Tony Robbins and his program, but this isn't exactly his, so not all of it came from him. So before, an important part is this can be done anytime you're having trouble making a decision. He often says the conflicts of decisions isn't when it's obviously a good and a bad choice. It's when you have two or more good choices. Then it becomes difficult because it's hard to decide which one's going to be the best choice. So some simple rules for the game. You have first, before you get started, is that all important decisions must be made on paper. When you go back and forth in your mind, your mind tends to loop, and it does this looping pattern, and you get stuck in between decisions. So it's important to write it down, because when you write it down, it makes it more clear and it makes it more tangible, and you get to see it gets your thoughts crystallized. So rule number one is that all important decisions must be made on paper. That's why this template will be helpful for you. Number two, never make a decision in your lower state. A big thing that Tony talks about is managing your state. And if you're feeling depressed, sad, alone, or angry, then you should go exercise, go for a jog, go do something that's going to make you in a better state. The quickest way to change your state is to get out and move. So to change your moving, your breathing, and change the way you use your body, it's going to quickly put you in a better state. So if nothing else, do some push-ups, some sit-ups, or just go for a quick jog before you make the decision, because if you're stuck in a low state, a low emotional state, if your energy is low, most likely you're not going to make the best decision. So try to be in the best state possible, the best energy possible before making the decision. Rule number three is that the worst decision is always to be indecisive. So the goal here isn't to find a perfect decision. The goal here is to resolve to make a decision and then spend all of your time making that decision the right one. One of the biggest distinctions I've had through using this is that it's not so much about finding which decision is right, but it's a matter of putting all your effort into what it is that you decide. So a good way to look at this is you spend about 20% of this going over what the decisions are, and then you spend 80% of that with following up, so that the path that you choose is reinforced by massive action so that it becomes the right decision. By you choosing a decision and backing it with massive action and massive purpose, then it enforces that that's the best decision to go. So finally, rule number four is that you should pray for guidance. I believe it's the best decisions we can make can come from our heart and can come from our connection to God, to source, to being, whatever it is for you. If you can get connected with whatever that higher source is for you, and you can be in a state of gratitude, then your decisions are going to be, you're going to find much better guidance than if you're just stuck in your head and you're trying to do everything on your own. So prayer is very powerful, and I strongly encourage you pray for guidance before starting or before you resolve on which decision you have. So those are the rules for the game, and we'll get right into it. So OOCEMR, if you look right up here, that's the simple initials. So OOCEMR. And what it stands for outcome, options, consequence, then evaluate, mitigate, and resolve. Outcome, options, consequence, evaluate, mitigate, resolve. So here it is, outcome. The first part, so now you got the rules down. First thing is writing it on paper. So this is, outcome is your first step. And a lot of times this is the only step you have to do, because if you're really clear on what you want, when you're crystal clear on what you want, a lot of times the decision becomes easy. And this question can be very difficult to answer. So the first step, answer these questions. What do you want? And specifically, the more specific detail you can get here, the easier it is going to be to make your decision. So try to get as much clarity as possible. There's a saying, clarity is power. So you want to be as clear and specific on what you want in this section. Next, why do you want the outcome? Your reasons are extremely important as to why you want something. So your reasons behind why you want it will strongly dictate the choices you make in terms of getting there. And then here, this is really helpful. How will you know when you get your outcome? So when you're looking at this outcome, it's really helpful to have an outcome of yes or no. So because we have a lot of promotional testing on this channel, say this is in regards to getting a job that you want, and say what you want is you want to test number 1 for the position that you want. And that's pretty clear. You could say, I want to test number 1 in this position. How will you know? If you have your outcome, it'll be a yes or no decision. Whereas if you were to say something like, I want to be great at my job, it's kind of hard to quantify it and bring that down to a yes or no decision. So if you can get what you want, and if you know that you have your outcome, yes, you got it, or no, you didn't, that really helps with that clarity. So the first part is outcome. What's your outcome? Next part, what options do you have? So option 1, 2, and 3. Now you have to have at least 3 options. Otherwise, if you only have 2, it's not enough. And this is from Tony Robbins' program. He said, if you have 2, you're just stuck between 2, but if you have 3. So the rule here, when you're filling out this form, is have at least 3 options to choose from. Even if you have to be creative to create a 3rd or 4th one, have at least 3 options. So you write out the options here. Write out what the options are. Just write them out here quickly. And then this little part is there any communication? Is there any questions or communication that would help clarify your outcome and or options? So this part here, if there's anything that would help to clarify, this is a good spot to put those down, because it might influence the pros and cons down below. So anything that comes up, any questions or communication that would help clarify the outcome and or your options. So that option's there. Then, so you see we got the outcome, we got our options, and then now we go down to the consequence / evaluate. So, C, and then we start the E for the EMR. So the consequence, this is where you just you write out on one side. So what you want to do is you want to put option 1 here, option 1, option 2, option 3, and you could keep going if you have more options. But what you do is just, what are the pros, what's the benefit, and you just write down all the potential benefits of this decision. On the other side is you write down all the cons and what's the risk that you have to face with this decision. So you write it all out here, write out the risk, and then these are just little tools down here at the bottom. I'm not sure I'll keep these in the form, but is the decision based on faith or is it based on fear? If it's based on fear, typically it's the wrong decision, but if you're basing on faith, generally speaking, that's the better choice to go with. And another one here, is it coming from your heart or is it coming from your head? So these are just 2 things to evaluate down here, but the main part of the consequence evaluate, list all the potential benefits, list all the cons and the risk, and you do that for each decision. Pros, cons, faith or fear, head or heart. And then this is where you can look over, you can evaluate. So you got the consequences over here, you got the benefit here, and then you just kind of evaluate, do the benefit outweigh the cost? Does the benefit outweigh the risk? Are the pros better than the cons? And just by writing it out, a lot of times you get clarity on what's the best one. The next part is the M, and so mitigate. So as you're going through this, you start to look at this category, the risk, the cons, and you say, is there anything that I can mitigate? Is there anything that I can turn around and make into a positive, or that I can quickly resolve so it's not so much of a risk, or it's not so much of a negative? And if that's the case, then you mitigate and you turn the negatives into positives, and that can help you make the best decision. So that's the OOCEMR. I'll cover it one more time and then we'll get down to the bottom. So the outcome, options, your consequences, and then you evaluate. So the pros and cons of each, and then mitigate. You mitigate, turn the positives into negative. And then the final portion of this, and this is the most important, is that review your choices, maybe review the rules of the game again. You made it on paper, make sure you're in a good state, don't get stuck in indecision, and then if this may be a good time for you to pray over these choices and ask for guidance. And then you resolve. Now, when you resolve, you never go for 100% certainty. There's always going to be some uncertainty in this, and so you don't go for the perfect answer, you go for the one that feels most right based on what you evaluated, and then you write it here. Again, the worst decision is indecision, so just pick one, make your best choice based on your evaluation up here, resolve, and then this is where you resolve. I will make this decision right by 1, 2, and these are the reasons that you're going to enforce this decision and make it strong. And then this part, I will take immediate action on the following. I will call this person, I will send this email, I'll do whatever. And so again, I re-emphasize, even though this is the last page, the resolve is where most of your action needs to follow from this decision. You need to go through this, spend your time to evaluate, look at your options, look at your outcome, but once you resolve, that's when you double down, you go all in, and you choose to make this the right decision by this massive action, and you back your new choice, your new resolve, by massive action, massive follow-through, so you begin to reinforce this decision and make it the right one. There's a quote that leaders don't make right decisions, leaders make decisions, then they make them right. So that's it. I hope it was helpful. Again, the concept is OOCEMR. It's an excellent tool to use for making decisions. Not so much for quick time decisions you have to make right in the moment, but when you have a bigger life decision or any decision and you have a few minutes that you can sit down and write it out, this is really going to help you to make some of these bigger decisions in life. Thanks for watching. Bye.